I think my mic is up now. Okay, we got some sound rocking and rolling. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. I see folks starting to circle in. So first, my name is Jeffery Beckham. I serve as the CEO of Reach Pathways, a startup out of Chicago. And we're really grateful that you all are here with us today. We have the honor of kind of being the headliner. And I know you all are excited to hear from what is my favorite football franchise in the world, the Chicago Bears. So let's give it up for the Chicago Bears. Yeah. Bear down. Now, I have with me Justin Stahl, who is the VP at the Bears, runs all things tech, and we're going to get into a good conversation today. So, Justin, let's take a seat.
Hi.
All right, so look, before we get into some of the technical aspects of the conversation, I got to ask you the question that everybody in the room probably wants to know. Do you like deep dish or thin crust pizza?
Thank you. Depends on the time of the day. I grew up in Michigan, so I do have a soft spot in my heart for some Detroit-style pizza, too. It's all Midwest love.
Well,
but I do love the thin crust, I would say, over the deep dish.
Okay. Now, I know you all probably expected me to ask a different question there. But Justin has already laid the groundwork that he knows as much about the Bears' first draft pick as we all do. So we're not going to get into that today, but we are going to talk some amazing things. And I think we can kick it off, Justin, by maybe sharing a little bit of your story, how you got to the Bears, the work you're doing now, and then I've got some other questions for you.
Yeah, and before I get into it, I do want to say it's an honor to be up here with Jeff. We met a couple weeks ago and then had a chance to meet over Zoom. And it would be such a miss to not interview him as well. So his experience is just loaded. So we just decided we're going to make this more of a conversation. There's going to be some Q&A at the end, but this isn't about anybody interviewing anybody. We've already been here for about 2 hours, I think, just talking. So we're hopefully going to rehash a lot of that up here. But I've been with the Bears 8 years now. My job historically, if I consider the bulk of that 8 years, has been a pretty traditional CIO job. And so what that means is we've gone through a digital transformation, a cloud migration, using as many cloud services as possible, coming from a really old operating model of like a true old IT department. And so that's built a culture, that's built an operating model, that's built a much more advanced tech stack. And so that's a pretty traditional CIO career path. And looking forward, we do have some things on the horizon. One of the two things, if you hadn't asked about the draft pick or wasn't going to ask, I thought it was going to be a stadium question, so I cringed on both. But we have all these kind of impetus things coming that could make one thing or another be very interesting, even with that traditional role. We do have new leadership. I think everybody's pretty aware. Kevin Warren is our new president. Kevin's been with the organization about 9 months. And Kevin has infused this energy, to say kind of the least, to set that foundational description of it. And one of the things I'm just fortunate to be tasked with and to work with him on is innovation.
Yeah.
And so that's why these conversations start, and being a part of events like this come to fruition. But that's kind of my job now. And so we're very much at our infancy of whatever that innovation journey means. And so I'm taking full license to ask dumb questions, introduce myself to people, be very curious because we're early. And I hope the relationship with you, Jeff, with World Business Chicago, with Midwest House continues, so we can come back over the next few years and just talk about our growth and where we go with it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Let's give it up for Midwest House today. This has been awesome, right? And World Business Chicago, we're really grateful to be here and have this conversation. You talk about being at the infancy of innovation with the Bears, but the organization with the centuries plus almost year history has done a lot in partnership over the years. And maybe you can share some of the work you all have done in working with entrepreneurs and startups and things you've done over the years as a football club.
Yeah. So I would say most of our collaboration work to date has really been around working with kind of the culture of Chicago. You've probably seen a lot of our collaborations on the marketing side. Our marketing team is here, so go ask Laura about a lot of that stuff. She's fantastic, and the work they've done is incredible. But that's been really getting into the city of Chicago and identifying who are those creators, who are those artists, really, that are true to Chicago, and not always necessarily like the biggest names that have come to Chicago. Sure. One of the filters I know Laura's team puts on those collaborations is, are there true roots in Chicago? And then the other thing they allow that artist or collaborator to do is kind of put their own spin on it. Yeah. Because of those roots, that person has like an experience with our brand. And so they get to kind of use our brand and be creative with it. So remove as many of those guardrails as we can, so that something really cool out of the city of Chicago comes. I would say more on the tech side in terms of collaborating with startups and starting to work there. I would love your experience, to hear about your startup and your experience and your interactions a bit with the Bears. But that really is new for us, so we're starting to get into that. So could you talk about your experience and even like the My Cause, My Cleats stuff you got into?
Sure, yeah, so the nonprofit I run last year, or this year, had the honor to be part of the My Cleats, My Cause initiative with the NFL and the Chicago Bears. And funny story, George McCaskey, the owner of the Bears, actually had a shoe design all built around the brand of my nonprofit. And the cool part about that is that, like, for a nonprofit, one of the things beyond money that really helps is, of course, exposure, right? Any business. And to be tied to a brand like the Chicago Bears that has such a deep and rooted history in Chicago elevated our perception. When George tagged it online, it helped us. We got some new partners into the fold because of it. And I thought it was just a really unique and cool way to innovate on a historic organization like Chicago Scholars. We're 30 years old. We've done a lot, helped over 6,000 young people, but also to be able to work alongside the Bears in that way. Yeah. And, I saw a lot of the players on the team had cleats dedicated to different initiatives around the city, which kind of leads me to a question for you in that. Like, the brand itself has such a historic cachet, and there's a lot of brand value in Chicago. How do you, as you think about innovation, balance like keeping and preserving tradition with like some of these new things, and especially in tech, like Web3, NFT, all these things are happening at the same time, and it's part of your job. Like, how do you balance wanting to be innovative and fresh, but also like still preserving the history of what it is that be the Chicago Bears? Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I guess I would say like I don't necessarily see those two things as like opposed to each other. I think they're both super valuable things that we need to be a part of, and how do you blend those in the best way? Sure. I think our tradition is a lot around our brand, in the way we operate our business, in terms of how we interact with the city of Chicago and that grit and what you as a Chicagoan think about when you think about the Bears. Yeah. So you do need to kind of offset that with, I don't want to give you a gritty Chicago experience every step of the way at a Bears game. There should be a higher end experience that we design, and so that's going to involve innovations. That's going to involve, sometimes what are table stakes at these other stadiums. So when we do that in a Chicago way, when it's themed in a Chicago way, when we understand the culture of our city and how our fans want to interact with us, the tech just sort of is tweaked, I would say, to that. And then that kind of results in like a really cool, unique Chicago experience using all the goodness that's out there. As you talk about like the fan experience, I'm sure you've been probably wrapping your brain around how tech plays a role in that. Yeah. And maybe talk about some of the things you all are doing from a tech perspective and how technology has played in aiding, implementing, enhancing that fan experience. Yeah, it's definitely something. So if you read the headlines in Chicago, right, we're talking about a new stadium and what that could look like. And as a technologist, that's super exciting to think about what those experiences could be. It's no secret we have an old stadium, so that has created some challenges in terms of giving those experiences that I think fans, in a lot of ways, it's becoming table stakes. When fans go to things like Allegiant or SoFi Stadium, and they have these world-class experiences. So
At times that can be challenging for us to provide that to them when there's Wi-Fi connectivity issues, when our networking isn't fantastic there.
Sure.
And so that's kind of the unsexy side of innovation, is there needs to be that table stakes connectivity, stability that we can give them. So as we're kind of approaching innovation across the club, really breaking that down into the buckets of fan experience, and there's a ton that goes into that across sales, suites, premium, game day, non-game day, but then looking at all the other buckets of the operations of the stadium itself, so many other pieces in terms of our org culture itself. How do we innovate on that? How is our community outreach innovating? So as you had said the question, I'm kind of picturing this matrix and what are the key 5 to 10 issues in each one of those areas?
Yeah.
Prioritizing accordingly, and a lot of times it's some basic things that we need to build before we can even put the icing on the cake.
Absolutely. It's so interesting to think about football now and where the game has gone, right?
Yeah.
On the field, game day analytics in real time. Yeah. What role in the work that you play, or do you manage a lot of that too, and what happens for the team on the field?
Yeah. So my goal is always to let as a traditional CIO, my goal is to let the experts do their jobs.
Yeah.
And so giving them the platforms, giving them sometimes the analytic skill sets in the teams that are working with them, but those people know football. I'm just an IT guy. So, but a cool story is, I think back in 2017, 2018, every player, well, this has been happening since about 2015, every player is tracked. So there's sensors in their pads.
Wow.
There's a sensor in their helmet, and then there's a sensor in the ball. And that sensor is taking essentially a coordinate reading every 10th of a second. And so every game, and this data had been captured since 2014 through 2017. A lot of conversation around the competition committee allowing people or the teams to have that data, because it's a true difference maker in terms of the competition. And a lot of teams were just old school, barely had an IT department, let alone could accept that tidal wave of data and do anything with it. So, that data is powerful, because if I can tell you how open the wide receiver was, DJ Moore, when Justin Fields starts his release, or how fast the center shifted as soon as the ball was snapped, it's very powerful data. You've probably seen some of the, I think it's the Amazon stuff where they show the acceleration of a player. That's all built out of that data.
Wow.
Also, some really interesting questions of who owns that data and what can you use that data for? Can I negotiate with a player because their performance is a little bit declining, and we have the hard facts to prove that? Or should that be that player's data? And so a lot of that hasn't been figured out yet. But we as a club were really proud that we had at least refreshed, again, to kind of the basics of technology. So in order to absorb that data, take it, we knew what to do with it, we knew how to store it, we knew how to process it, we knew how to do something with it. And I'm thankful we have the kind of the innovative minds to do something with it. Yeah.
This is a random question, but so in order to create competitive balance in across the NFL teams, does the NFL have some interplay in that? I heard you talk about this health informatics data of players and the way they're cutting to the ball, and let's say the Bears are better at doing that than others. Do they share best practice? Is it NFL down, or can each team kind of tweak what happens?
It's funny because every year there's an annual conference, and all the NFL technology teams get together, and so there will be sessions where we're sharing on how you're implementing the latest Microsoft platform, how you're going to Cloud AD, Azure AD, the basics of running a business.
Sure.
The people that don't talk are the football side. Those secrets are very guarded.
Okay.
Because that is truly the competitive edge.
Wow.
And at times it's almost there's some of that conversation that goes on, sure, but it's very much kept close to the vest. So yeah.
It's interesting, man. You literally, we talk about football. It is a multi-billion-dollar business, right? I think I saw the other day the Bears are the 5th or 6th most valuable franchise in the NFL. And even as you describe it, you've literally named a health informatics department, a marketing department, traditional IT infrastructure department, resources and support, legal, compliance, all under your umbrella. Like just in you managing the IT components of that, that's a lot. So how do you like approach the work and think about prioritization year in and year out to make sure like you're achieving your plan and your goals?
Yeah. It comes down to something we've been talking about. I said we talked for a couple hours here, and it's just about relationships and knowing people. So like part of my job is just spending that time out with the marketing department, understanding what their pain points are with the technology, understanding any initiatives they have that we can help, maybe collaborate with. But the goal is always to democratize that kind of use and push that, wherever possible to the edge where they're using the data and the technology however they want. For us, it always comes down to a kind of strategic set of what does your business do? So if you think about like what drives revenue at a business, what are your core capabilities to get buzzwordy here? Those are the things that first and foremost are the strategic things your business has to absolutely invest in or be good at, and maybe makes sense to dedicate resources to or bring those things in-house versus shared services or things like that don't, they're very much matter to a company, but we could probably outsource some of that because as long as it's done well and stably, it's not going to make or break us either way. Can I ask you,
sure,
as working in this space, how do you do all that?
So it's funny because, we talked earlier, my nonprofit that I lead, which is a relatively established, older nonprofit, I got the bright idea to build a startup under a nonprofit. So we have a for-profit gaming platform called Reach Pathways, where effectively think of like, if you ever played The Sims, how many of y'all play The Sims? Any Sims folks back there?
Everybody.
Well, imagine that if you apply for a job in The Sims, you're actually applying for a job in real life. And so that's what we've built for young people, targeted for high-performing, under-resourced students across the country. One of the big dreams is like building a Soldier Field in that platform, and then kids could go interact with Bears content and actually apply for jobs. So we'll think about that later. But because I'm now managing two organizations in one, it is like what you said, relationships, prioritization, and like any good business, building the right team, having a really good team, and having great partners. I'm proud to say World Business Chicago has been a partner. The Bears are a new partner, and we have so many others, even South by Southwest. So I actually won the South by Southwest pitch competition this time last year. And so it's been really cool, thank you, to be able to do this work. I think it actually dovetails nicely into the next part of the conversation. We talk a lot about innovation and org structure and the things like we do day to day, but there's also a lot happening with the Bears right now and how you all are innovating the way you approach community and community partnerships. You talked a little bit about building a CRM for an org you all were working with. And maybe you could share that story. I think it'd be really cool to hear how a team has used their brand and the power of their own infrastructure to empower a local organization.
So one of the things Jeff and I have just like geeked out on was just like, what Chicago Scholars does, what you've built in Reach Pathways, and like some of the work we're doing. A few years ago, our IT team just wanted to do more. One of the things I do love about my job is it's a big brand. It gives me access to a lot of people. People generally like answer the email when the Chicago Bears, .net is on the end of it. And so that's power, right? So I always feel a responsibility to the city and just to do goodness of using that power for good. So we have access through our nonprofit arm called Bears Care. We have a lot of great relationships. Historically, those relationships have been related to kind of holiday giving initiatives, things that were certainly impacting communities and helping people, but less kind of getting in the day-to-day and improving processes with them. So we were introduced to an organization called Target Area. And Target Area operates in the neighborhoods near and around Auburn Gresham in Chicago. And so the work they do is around violence intervention work. They do a lot of work in terms of re-entry, so people in the prison system coming back. They help provide them with services to get them education, housing, just stability back into their community. And then they do, like I said, violence intervention. So they're literally out 4 or 5 a.m. at night sometimes. But what we found was their manual. They're writing these things on a piece of paper. The technology they're using is very much related to a grant. So they have to use a bit of an archaic system. And we said, well, what if we built you, like you said, a CRM system? So we partnered with a company called Engage RM. I have to give them credit because they put in just hundreds of hours of development work on building a Microsoft Power App for them. And that allows them to track their clients. So there's an intake. And then the people on the target area side are reminded on a cadence of what those clients need, whether that's housing resources, whether that's just general follow-up, anything, and kind of track them through a system to just get those people what they need and help people. So that's been built. And what we're now starting to do is talk to Microsoft about how do we give that away to more organizations that could use that. And so those conversations have been happening over really just even the last couple of weeks. My big vision is build some kind of center. Put the Microsoft logo on it. Train people because it's been hard to find people with that skill set for nonprofits that will come in and support it, that will be basic IT support. Not-for-profit organizations are often, people are wearing every hat. I don't need to tell you this. And so finding good technology support or just even finding those skills in the marketplace is hard. So there's a need. Yeah. The other thing about tech that I just love in general is, and this is more traditional IT, I know we're all here kind of in tech, but give me 6 months with a young person that's eager. You can really give that person a career trajectory through some basic IT help desk support skills, through, as we were talking, like the idea, train them in some of these Microsoft basic skills support. The need is there, and that changes, it fills a need on the corporate side, but it changes that person's life. Yeah. So let's keep talking, like your Chicago Scholars and even like the reach, there's just so much opportunity there, it feels like.
Yeah, and I can confirm, like we do a lot of work with big tech at Chicago Scholars, and the way the Bears are approaching and being thoughtful about giving is the way those companies do. I was told very early on that, like, I won't name them because I won't put their name in the space, but a big tech firm told me we don't give dollars, but we give hours and we give time. And that time has actually been exceptionally helpful for us in terms of understanding how to run ads, create space in the sector to bring on resources. So even the way you're thinking about it is not only saving that nonprofit a lot of money, we use a CRM and spend a tremendous amount of money on it every year, but also like giving them something that you can't put a dollar amount on, which is really special. Yeah. It's very cool.
What would you say those skill sets are, like what are the most important to an organization like that?
Yeah, I'm real big on like being tactical. So I tell like everybody in this audience, every one of you has a skill or an ability that can help a community-based organization. Like whether you're in marketing or sales or you're a writer, literally we use all of it in a different point and a different piece of capacity to build capacity for our organizations. Most nonprofits and social impact organizations today are drastically stretched thin and overworked trying to figure out how they can accomplish whatever their goal is or their systems change work. And so, I encourage each of you, whether you have an hour or two to volunteer to bring your capacity in, your tech know-how. The reason why we launched Reach Pathways was because we had a board member who was at McKinsey, and McKinsey actually helped us devise the plan on how we could scale our organizational success across the country. And through that work, we found out very quickly that it wasn't going to be putting more people in different cities, because that's hard and that's expensive. It was building an efficient tech platform that we could now deliver what we do to kids across the country. So my big goal is Chicago Scholars now, but Reach Pathways for the rest of the country.
Is there a model where you would take Reach Pathways, being in the metaverse, right?
Yep.
And partner not-for-profits with people like this to come help them in that metaverse for an hour or two, because I sometimes think that matchmaking is hard. There's a hurdle there.
Yep,
and
that's
you really
exactly the model.
Okay.
That's exactly I mean, we're building and bringing on individuals, adults who are vetted to sit with young people and talk about their careers online, to share their journeys, to share their college stories, like how did you pick the right university?
Yeah.
How did you play sports in high school or undergrad? Like really sharing that. And we're using right now, like in the one-on-one content to build that. But the big vision of that is actually to take this and like use your story and use AI to layer that and let AI do that so that we can now generate and use generative content based in AI for young people. So that's the future.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
When I watched the promo for Reach Pathways, it was so interesting to hear your students talk about not having access to the doctors, and like, you know, when they go to the college admissions office,
Yep.
or the counseling office, whatever, they're told to go, hey, go talk to your parents' friends that are doctors. And so they don't have that access. And so
Yeah.
what you've done is create that opportunity.
Exactly. I mean, if you're from a low-income, rural, first-generation household or migrant or immigrant community, there is no go talk to that cousin or that next-door neighbor about what it's like to be CIO of the Bears. So how can we democratize access? And that's why you said it earlier. I really do love tech. I love the ability to build community and harness the power of community.
Yeah.
You know, as I think about the Bears brand, you know, we were talking earlier, the beauty of the Bears brand, yes, the football team is great and amazing, but along with that is this community of fans and people. So how do you think about the interplay of connectivity and building bonds of people? How do you use tech to drive that? What are the Bears thinking about doing? What are they currently doing? And what does the future look like for the organization in terms of the experience?
Yeah, I think somebody asked me this question last night about a long-time season ticket holder they know and what that person can expect going forward. And it's true. I think we're a humble enough organization to know that there's real improvement opportunities coming. And that's all around not just who we are when you come watch a game at Soldier Field on a Sunday. It's about creating a full year view so that in season, in stadium, in season, outside of the stadium, out of season, in the stadium, out of season, out of the stadium, and being across the board. I think it's one of the things that is exciting about the opportunity of a new stadium is operating that 365 days a year, hosting different events and concerts and things there.
Yeah.
Changes my job fundamentally, but it's just so much opportunity to innovate and to build like a new platform by which we can reach people. But I think it's a fair question, and I don't know if I have a great answer for how we improve that fan experience, not just on a game day, but around. But it's something that is taken very seriously, and we consider.
I found it really interesting. I was having a conversation with a few season ticket holders when I came to Hallis Hall, and they described how, like, at every point of emphasis, you all use real human-centered design. You all bring fans into the conversation about what should happen with the team. You know, how was that process developed, and how have you all leveraged, like, fan voice in all the things that you do to create a better experience for the fans, but also think about, like, future and innovation?
Yeah, so after every game, the main point of what we consider in our post-game wrap-up is all around the voice of the fan. It's called just that. And so that's, trending that we saw. Fans are happy with this. There's direct surveys that are filled out by you all as fans, if you're Chicagoans. And so line by line, we read that feedback, and it's addressed, it's captured, it's responded to as we can. So it's the highest priority feedback and direction that we take from fans. I think innovation-wise, those are things we trend over years, and we know we have to get right, so there's bigger fixes we can look at. Again, I'm going to hit on the stadium thing. Like, we know what has to go right, what fans expect, what our fans expect. And then there's just a note about, or just like the idea of spending time in the community more. So coming to things like this, talking to the tech community. If we're going to get into innovation, we're humble enough as an organization to know that we can't just come in and start investing and all of a sudden be this venture arm or venture firm. We've got to spend time here. And that's what I've learned in 6 months here is everybody is so welcoming and kind and amazing. We were talking about like how Chicago is unique in that it's not a sort of a trade-off where it's a zero-sum game of I'll introduce you to somebody if you give me something in return. Everybody's just doing goodness, and that goodness kind of begets more goodness, it seems. And so it's been very welcoming. But we're humble enough to know that this takes time spent, and that's time on task. It's time here. It's time meeting people like yourself and having genuine relationships, so that if and when we launch something, and I don't know exactly what that is yet, it's real. It's right, and that just feels more authentic and just the right way to do things.
Well, I got to say, as a participant in this ecosystem with the Bears and as a fan, you all have truly embraced innovation and diversity in ways that I haven't seen done it often. And I'm out in the city a lot. And maybe talk a little bit about how you all have used the brand cachet through initiatives, through food. You talked about fashion.
Yeah.
I see an amazing jacket over there that was custom designed, bear down. But you all have done this a lot. And I know personally, we talking about my friend, you guys have brought in food bloggers, historians, to really use your social presence and content to drive not just what's happening with the Bears, but what's happening in the city.
Yeah. It's always, and I got to give a lot of credit to Laura and her team in terms of those marketed and collabs that they do. They're authentic, they're real, like Joe Fresh Goods, Cole Bennett and Lyrical Lemonade, Rello, we talked about a little bit, Leaders 1354. And then on the food side, things like Bears Burgers and even our All-Pro business, I might have got that name wrong, sorry Laura, but that elevated restaurants, and there's a version of that elevates restaurants and gives them grant money and serves up their food just to get them the reach you talked about. And that's always authentic, and that's always given them, to the point earlier, it gives them some of that flexibility to use our brand in a way that they want, because they're fans, they're part of the city, put your spin on it, kind of feel to it. The other component that you kind of hit on was just our DE&I efforts, and I'm just so proud, that stuff was doubled down on from the start, and was recently doubled down on with some of the unfortunate news that you see with companies kind of withdrawing those efforts. Sure. And it's been I see it daily, our hiring practices changed. The face, the kind of makeup of our organization has changed, and it's for the better. It's been such a good experience in terms of what we did it, we stuck to it, and it's benefiting our organization. Our organization looks more like the city of Chicago. There's ways to go. We track that. We report internally on that, what we look like. And there are real intentional things, even as a staff member, that I'm challenged with to be a better person. So we were all flown to Washington, D.C. for a tour of the Black and African American Museum there. What organization dedicates, that kind of resource to get their whole staff to go have that experience? You talked about your friend Dilla. Dilla's done multiple tours of Chicago for us. If anybody doesn't know who Dilla is, you should really look up his content and the services he provides in terms of the history of Chicago, the tours he provides. And I don't even know how to describe what he does. It's just so powerful.
It's truly a brilliant guy, and he uses the history of Chicago to really kind of create a tie-through, an intersection of things across the country. So his catchphrase is everything dope comes from Chicago. And when you talk to this man, you will see he can pull things from a sports perspective to a history and communities perspective. It's really brilliant. I love some of the ones he's done around Gale Sayers and Walter Payton, and those stories of how these guys were in the neighborhood, in the community, part of Chicago culture. He's talked about Dick Butkus at length. I think Dick was one of the first Bears player, first rounder drafted from Chicago,
Yeah.
and just that history of like the organization. So it's not just sports. He'll talk about food and life and culture. So he's a great follow. If you haven't followed him, check him out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, we're here for Midwest House. You talked a little bit about the ecosystem of Chicago and how it feels really collaborative. I think that our tech ecosystem is really starting to bubble. I use that term lightly, and I think we have a big opportunity the next few years to like be more cohesive, intentional, collaborative, and grow. But I'm really interested, like how and what do you see as the Chicago advantage for sports, for culture, in your role and your lens through the Chicago Bears?
You know, I look at like across other sports franchises, and to have an innovation arm isn't a new concept. But then I think about doing it in Chicago. You know, I talk about the team up north, the Packers, and they've been really successful with Titletown Tech. And that's a really cool model, how that's grown. I've gotten a little bit into the history of how they've done that. And it's done it has done awesome things for their community.
Yeah.
But Chicago's the best city in the world, right? So like, and that model applies other places. Like other places have done that kind of investment model in different ways. There's always flavors of that, of course. When we do that, I should say, to use another sports analogy, it's a slam dunk, right? Like
right.
It's gonna be amazing. So, like the energy in Chicago, talking to people from World Business Chicago about the entrepreneurial scene in Chicago and how diverse it is in terms of the industries supported. It isn't skewed heavily. I'm looking at you, Billy. It isn't skewed heavily just to one sector.
That's right.
So there's so much opportunity to grow that whole pie, and I think it really is just the start. So like, and then it's just Chicago. It's just amazing. The lake, Kevin did an interview recently, and he talked about how rare of a city it is, where you have fresh water there in the backdrop of a city, and you can swim, as he said, in that
That's
water.
Right. That's right.
So it's just goodness, really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I love that question in the narrative. You know, Chicago is a city with 77 disparate communities that comes together, right? And there is a unique component of each and every one of those communities. Whether you're in, Bronzeville, or High Park, Lincoln Park, back of the yards, Pilsen, there's either a food or a culture or a museum or a personal connection that people feel to that part of the city. And I think that's part of the uniqueness that makes the city so special.
Yeah.
We have a myriad of resources, and so many of those resources are still untapped, but the number one resource Chicago has, and I stand on this, is its people.
Yeah.
It's the people. And I know one thing for certain, and we talked about this, one of the combining and conjoining things that people love from all 77 of those neighborhoods is Chicago Bears.
That's right.
So, you talk about the 85 Bears, and I saw some posts that we need to get over it. We will not. We love the 85 Bears. We will always love our 85 Bears.
That's right.
But it is something so core and tangential to the history of the city that makes the city special.
How do you feel as like a Chicagoan growing up in that, and now in this tech space, the conversation we're having right now, like what would you do?
I mean, so I told you my story. I feel like really blessed. I had a dad and an uncle who were diehard Bears fans. So I was literally like ingrained in Bearsdom when I was 5 years old. And I remember watching that Super Bowl in my uncle's basement. I didn't know much about football, but what I remember is how happy the moment in that sport made them. And I think my personal connection to the Bears has always been, and even in the down years, and we're coming back, it's coming back.
That's right.
Even in the down years, it's been that personal connection of remembering these like mega giants in my family being happy, moments of happiness.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we are so tied to our sports franchises, why our sports teams in Chicago mean so much to us.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad and really grateful for World Business Chicago's work as the marketing arm of our great city and really building relationships and collaborations with the Bears to leverage the power of your brand. I think people get to see the city in a different light.
Yeah.
You know, we see a lot of the press around Chicago, and we know the narratives that are being painted and created by some of the media. But when you visit our city, you see that lakefront, you see people working together, you see our young people thriving, you see it, you feel the energy. It's different than what's being painted. And that's the part why this was so important today, why your presence and the Bears' presence and being part of this was really important, because we get to see what Chicago truly is.
Yeah,
you know?
It means a lot. You said something earlier when we were talking about when you met Kevin Warren.
Yeah.
And it just was such an illustration of, you said when he started, he just opened up connections in the city of Chicago. And that's how this feels. It feels like we're having conversations like this. We're having a lot of excitement. We're having a lot of what-if conversations, and starting to really ideate on what those possibilities could be with this crowd and yourself that are the future of Chicago.
Yeah.
And so that's one, the leadership, I have to give Kevin credit for, that he's brought, and the vision and the entrepreneurial spirit he's really infusing. And so, yeah, it's spot on. It's just awesome.
So as we start to wrap, I got a question for you. Lots going on with the Bears. We talked about it, right? Lots in the news, a lot of good. I saw free agencies open right now. They got players in town. Possibility of a new stadium. Of course, #1 draft pick, #9 draft pick. Kevin Warren's presence on the team. Ryan Poles and the work that he's done. The way the season turned around with Matt Eberflus and the team and the staff. Your work with innovation, the brand presence that's being built with partnerships with people in the community, all these great things.
You can stop. That's good.
What,
We're good.
What are you most excited about in your work and for the organization?
Yeah. So one thing I'll just say is, like, as a CIO, your typical career path is like a 6 to 8 year job. You come in, and if you're good, you kind of organize, you build a tech stack, you run that a little bit. Maybe there's some more challenges that kind of keep you in, but in that 6 to 8 year period is when it's kind of like, okay, this is just running, you built it, what's the next big thing?
Sure.
And so that's been totally reset for me. When Kevin started, I had this moment where, like, he's talking, he's giving his intro speech to the organization, and then the first time I talked to him, I didn't even realize it, but I've got a fist clench in my pocket. Like, let's go. Like, this, he's it. So I would say everything you said is exciting, but what I can control of that, and so personally, is this innovation work. And getting to spend time in communities like this and have conversations and meet people like yourself that are, it's seriously humbling to be able to talk to somebody like you up here and to meet people. And it's just so genuine. So what that is, I think I'm also a planner, so I've had to shut off the, like, what does a year from now look like?
Yeah.
But it's been exciting, and it could go hundreds of ways that I think are all good. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, I know it's loud, but I did want to leave a little bit of space to get maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience. So if there's anybody that's got a pressing question on their mind for Justin around the Bears,
or you,
or me,
or Jeff,
now is the time. We got a couple minutes left before we're going to wrap and close, but I did want to leave that space to make sure someone might have a question. We have a mic. Thank you.
Oh, nice.
Going around. So any questions? All right. It's coming.
He's going.
Is it on now?
Yes, sir.
I find it really interesting. Thank you guys for the technology. When you think about looking backwards and applying the technology of today to what you think about the Bears in the past, when you think about the 2006 Super Bowl, the analytics of today and the technology, what do you think you would have done with Kyle Orton for the Super Bowl in 2006 if you could have applied the technology of today to that?
Oh.
That's wild.
That's a good question.
What I would have done with Kyle Orton. So, like, the basis of the question is just like the evolution of technology. Like, we have an IT department now. It's a small team. We leverage outside resources heavily to just run a basic IT department. When you're talking about that, there may have been 2 people in it. So, sleeping in their cars because something went down that night. Everybody traveled, everybody did everything. So it's just a totally different world. I have seen some people go back and track those stats. It's hard to argue with the success though, right? Like he's a Super Bowl quarterback. Functional, right? And it fit within that system. So, and there's so much that goes beyond, and that's why Ryan and Matt are going to continue being successful. They understand the human element of a lot of this, so the culture that they've built plays so much into just the performance analytics. So I don't think I answered your question, but
it's funny you asked that question. When we were doing some of the prep, we talked a little bit about like, how can AI, so I think about now, like, could you have gone back, fed in some of the plays, the script, and used predictive analytics to then think about what plays could have been run? Maybe the play scripts are different, right? Maybe the route trees are different. But you mentioned that the NFL is actually like kind of coming and starting to put parameters around that to limit what you all can do, if that's correct.
There's still quite a bit of control of the competition from the competition committee. So everybody sees those surfaces or those tablets on the sideline. All that the teams are able to do is see a still picture on that. So they can't watch video. So that still allows teams to scheme, to fake a scheme, and that has to be picked up by the eye. Yeah, you can take multiple shots and send that down, but it's not the same. It's talking to our coaches and our scouts, it's a game changer to see video replay of what the team did. You can dial in your reaction to their offense or defense better.
And it feels like the NFL's learned from baseball, which at one point was so analytics driven that, with the shifts and advanced metrics, it was changing the game, and baseball obviously has eliminated the shift. They've gotten rid of a lot of that. So It sounds like the NFL has like paid attention and thought about their innovation in a way where it won't alter competitive balance on the field. Another question? Question 2. Anybody else? All right. Got one right here.
I think I have questions on the mind of all Chicagoans here. Is we see another Super Bowl win before I die?
Yes.
Cool.
And it'll be winning a Super Bowl in Chicago, in a dome stadium.
Okay, we heard the prediction.
That's a Kevin Warren quote.
In Chicago, in a dome stadium.
That's a Kevin Warren quote.
That could also mean Chicago and outlying suburbs. So he kept himself, got a little grace there. But no, look, we want to thank you all. Justin, thank you so much for this, your time. Thank you to the Bears, to World Business Chicago, and to Midwest House. This is the best house on the street. Yes. Before you all go, we're going to turn it back over to Billy. He's going to draw. I'm going to draw. Okay, I'm going to draw the winner of how many prizes? We got 3 prizes. Okay. Let's stick around. I'm going to pick one. I won't look because people get personal about that. All right. One is, let's see, ticket number 285401. 285401. Anybody? All right, I'm going to draw again. Going once, going twice, no go. Ticket number, the second number is 285404. 04? 404?
404.
Okay. Let's get another, not 4 or something. Let's see. Okay. 285424. 424? 285424. Did I hear I won? No? Right. After this, we're going to just start to go by hands raised. Yeah, okay, keep pulling. Got you. Okay, 285454. 454? I pulled 2 because I thought this might happen. All right, 285430.
Why don't you just tell us what the numbers are?
247? 285-423. 285-450. I feel like 450 is here. 285-450. No, man, this is like hilarious. 285-378. 378. 375. 375?
Yay!
Woo! Yes.
Hey!
All right. Over there, we got some prizes. I think there's two more. 452. 285-452. 452.
Yay!
I did say 450, like 4 numbers ago. What are you doing? 397. 397. This is the third one. 285-397. No.
394.
Thank you, Justin. This is
We'll go back and forth.
All right. 285-381. 381. 381.
405.
Then we got one more
We
prize.
got one more.
285-370. 370.
387. 285-387.
285-446. Yeah! All right.
Yeah!
Look, thank you all again very much for attending. We appreciate it. Please hang out at the house, have some food, drinks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
That was
Appreciate it.
good. Thank you.